Okay,
Yeah,
round two. My apologies. Okay, so
not at all. And I'll start my audio, well, my recording as well, just as a
all right. So the
courtesy.
issue, the massive issue, is that um, oh dear God, this is very uncomfortable.
Do you want to start a new whiteboard? Because I
No,
was just
no,
doodling.
no. Hang
No?
on.
All right.
Okay, so the conclusion I reached. Okay, in the jitter fucking document that we prepared, that we were like, okay, this is the future, and here's how the fucking world's gonna work and all that. And
Yep.
we were like, uh, if you can program a natural language and deliver a natural language, then you can remove the software industry, right? And
Yeah.
we were like, yeah, that's cool, we got it, and we were off to do it. But as it turns out, even we had not cut enough of the software industry off from us. Now,
Okay.
um, the upside of going pure markdown file is that, first of all, it's all natural language. So you got a markdown file for your data. You got markdown files that list the rules that you want the LLM to execute. You've
Yep.
got markdown structures that represent the tests that get run on when you can change a certain
Yeah.
file, all that.
And
Okay.
you're talking in the language that the LLM's been trained on,
Right. But
which
it's
I think is
also the
the major
language of
one.
the human. So the
Yeah.
human can look at it and can arrange all these things and can chat with the LLM, and it's all natural fucking language. And so why even have programming at all other than to run an LLM and
Right. Yeah.
the, all these issues, right? So the there's a secondary benefit to that we hadn't appreciated, which is the fact that if your entire fucking software supply chain is eclipsed down to who made that LLM and is it trained correctly and does it work right,
Hmm.
you can eliminate every other vulnerability that you ever had to be exposed to, because your software supply chain, the lines of code that you consume as your dependency, plus have to maintain and update, all that's gone. So these
Yes.
apps are
Agreed.
incredibly safe and sound, and they're
Well, they're no,
only
they're as safe as the LLM, and I'm sure you're about to then talk about the core and multiple LLM models.
yeah. And so you can have diversity and blah 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 and all these models, but even still, first of all, the LLM gives you a better time to first byte. Like, how long is it from when the user wants to do something until they receive back their first useful byte from the machine? In an
Yeah.
LLM, it's measured in tens of milliseconds. In traditional software, it's measured in months. So, number
Yeah.
one, you can get the feedback going real time, not fucking
And without a six figures,
right,
sum
right,
attached to it.
with like
Yeah.
fractions of a cent real time. There you go. The That's you getting the benefits of um, instantaneous running. But second of all, what I found in my laborings with trying to get Artifact plugged in to the LLMs is that the LLMs are uh, for them to give a meaningful response back or take corrective action or do something based on Artifact doing something. Now I got to produce meaningful error messages and all this other shit, right? Which a good program should do, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
the
Yeah.
LLM still doesn't really fucking know what my program's doing. It's like, push the lever spat
That's
this
a good point.
message back, right? But if the
Yeah.
LLMs are all done in this one natural language thing, the LLM intimately knows what the fuck it was trying to do. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to make shit up about what an app was. It's like, no, I was trying to, and then it can list out the steps that it was trying to do, and then I had an error doing blah 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 and blah blah. Like it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
It's much
It's a,
more self-aware of what the machine was doing. It is the machine, in
yeah.
essence.
Yeah.
So, so that seems winning. Now, the real sort of, I'm still uneasy about shifting to the Git format because that's kind of a lot of time. But then I'm like, fuck, if it's where we're going anyway. Because using Git, what would happen is you'd make all your changes to the markdown files and then you'd do a commit. And then you'd immediately, like, I haven't made the consensus mechanism of our chain, right? Because I was like, hard, got these other issues first. With
Yeah.
Git, it's kind of fucking, merging, all these decentralized operations. Like, oh, I just edited every file in my CRM, but I was on a plane, and now the internet came back, and I'd like to get it figured out here, right? In Git, that's the LLM could reasonably be imagined to walk you through all the issues with that, and it just happens. That's not
Yeah.
built in our system, so we would have to make that. But
Yeah.
here's this opportunity to use this system now. It's making me kind of uneasy because there was a lot of shit that we did that is kind of just being dumped. But I mean, does it really matter? I don't know. However, the patents suddenly seem kind of not really that useful. So
I would agree with that. The patents. There are characteristics of what we're doing that I think is still important.
yeah,
So, for example, if I was to go to UK Gov and try and host data for them, they wouldn't want it on Git.
well, they wouldn't
They,
want it on
they,
GitHub, but they wouldn't really have much to complain about if it was just using Git as a file system.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So
What they would want is logging and
yeah. So
auditability.
right. So we can
Yeah.
actually deliver that using Git, and all these tools are already built. And I guess I just need to fucking get over it. But yeah, I might have just wasted several years of my life.
I'm not so sure. I think Git is a placeholder. It feels like a placeholder.
Yeah, maybe,
Um,
maybe.
in that, ideally, what we want, I would propose, is a store of knowledge where you can fraction the items of the information in a way that you know that if someone wants, remember, the data provenance, data sovereignty thing, that's not going to be done through Git.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely that. Is actually the
Is it?
model that Git was built for.
So you can
Um,
remove your data from Git, and it will forget that you ever
yep,
existed.
yep. You can do that. You can do
Huh.
that.
I
Yeah.
did not know that. Okay,
But
interesting.
anyway, I'll have to reconcile that, tamp that down a bit more with Ben. But it's sort of starting to feel like we should just switch over to that format. I'll figure out the repercussions of it. Uh, I'll
It's yeah.
I'll list
I'm getting
out.
the same.
I'll make a list of what the losses are and the gains are for us. But it basically is going to come down to decentralized functionality now,
Mhm.
um, with the loss of some types of execution, maybe. So that's a choice.
Um,
You don't have to think too hard about that kind of choice. You're like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. The marriage of AI and decentralization, I think, is golden.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely. So let me the main thing that really got me going on this and sort of tipped the scales for me to go like, yep, that's the way to go, and then begin the process of all this reconciliation with what we've already done, was that
mm,
I realized that the consensus mechanism itself, if you remember how deep Tendermint we
yep.
went into, right, and we had the flowcharts going and all these kinds of ways of modeling out Tendermint, and then I was proposing a handful of modifications to improve the speed of it or the functionality of it, all that stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I actually believe now that using pure text with an LLM, we can both
Mm,
program and transact using the Tendermint algorithm where consensus is reached amongst independent instances of an LLM. And so the algorithm is described in plain
Well,
text, executed
yeah.
by the LLM in plain text, and the messages are
Hmm.
passed around using Git with trying to merge with other the other actors around the table. So you're trying
Yep.
to have you've got Git structures and you're trying to do a pull request on everyone else's stuff to get what you think is right merged in, and the
Hmm.
LLM is interpreting the summation of the changes of each pull request according to the rules laid out by the
Hmm.
Tendermint algorithm, which is coded in text.
Mm. That could work.
Right? If you
Yeah.
can fucking do that, what the fuck do you need all this other programming for? Right? And that's where I was like, oh shit,
Good
we
Lord.
can ditch literally everything
The last 6 years of our lives. Yeah. Wow.
more than and other people are gonna, but it's like whoever's first whoever's first
Yeah.
wins. And if you're not, like it's gonna take some balls to make this call. um I don't
Yeah.
think I actually have enough in me to make any more calls like this. This is probably the last one
It's a big
because
one. It's a
there's
big one.
nothing left after this. It's just pure LLM, and I think it's better. I think it's
I,
better because all the programs are just natural language,
well, what I would say is LMs are going to be improving at an exponential rate.
right? They're only going to get better, and if our functionality depends on them, we will ride the fucking wave with them as they get better.
Yeah.
Anything that we try to do outside of an LLM will ultimately get gobbled by an LLM. So the faster we are operating as LLM only,
Yeah.
the better.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that even the consensus mechanism can be done by Git plus LLMs, and we can do it today because we have OpenAI giving us API access to an LLM is no different to you running that on your local trusted machine, except you're not. That's all. But the
Hmm. But you
programming
can. But you
model,
can if you
you
choose.
yeah, right.
There's other models. Yeah.
Yeah, there's other
Yeah.
models, and they'll get better, and the open source models will get better, and da 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 da, and all this stuff. And in the
Yeah.
meantime, we're growing this potentially vast data set of stacks and usage and execution and all these things, and it's all parsable in natural language, understandable in natural language, but it's also showing what the humans incentivize or what they liked because it's what they paid for, what they chose to amplify, all that. And so this huge data set is used to train the next generation of LLMs because it starts
Which
to
is only going to get better because
yeah,
you've got humans talking to AIs.
that's right. That's right.
Um,
And the
yeah,
stuck loops, the helps that come out of the stuck loop. The stuck loop, I think, still definitely holds in this model. But instead of the helps requiring sort of some programming, they're really solvable in natural language, so long as you've got a workbench coded in natural language that walks you through how to solve how to provide a help in a nice format.
I,
And
I,
then
I, I agree. I agree.
yeah,
And there's a few things. There's the feedback loop. The stuck cycle, I think, is still golden.
absolutely. I
Be,
think that's
be,
crucial. And
yeah,
that actually becomes training data for larger LLMs to
right,
use.
right.
And
Or even on-prem instances
yeah,
where you're really going from a blank piece of paper
right. Yeah, right. Right.
into something.
Right. And what I'd imagine is that the stucks and the helps that accompany them would always be getting gobbled as they get ingested as the training data for the LLM, and so you don't need to call on them as much because the LLM now has that innately within it, and
Yeah.
so the stucks are really the
Well, we're
edge
talking.
of chaos.
You're talking about. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And
that's the
yeah,
stuck loop, and
yeah,
it's always getting crunched down and turned into the ever expanding LLM, but that edge is always the stuck loop.
Yeah, but that loop, that edge of chaos is exponential in nature because the machine is always going to get faster than people get better. Um, and if we keep it to text, which this is what I was trying to do up here, um, is trying to put down what it would look like in a text file. Um, so
All right.
I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah,
I haven't quite finished. I just got a couple more
yeah.
additions,
Go
and
for
I'm
it. Go,
nearly
go
there.
for it, Matthew.
So I
Yeah.
had spent a large amount of time making a library of components that could display arbitrary data so long as it was in JSON schema format.
Hmm.
I'm about to chuck that in the bin because I can just use Markdown and it looks fucking good enough. Right? Like, if I just display the markdown version of the fucking customer record, and I asked GPT to put some emojis in it to make it sort of look cool and put some formatting in it, right? You just display that. I reckon it's perfectly fucking fine. I don't need to
Hmm.
be making, Markdown is a way for the LLM to be expressive and be a little bit visually fucking cool and whatever without
Yep.
needing to spend any time making React components or testing them or anything like that.
I
Now,
agree. I agree. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So there will be some times when I need a specific component, like for example for mapping, when I want to select points on a map and all that kind of stuff. But we can make those sort of purpose built one at a time. They don't have to do very much. They only have to feed a fucking result back into the chat because they really just uh, they only serve the purpose to create a text input that Dave cannot easily do directly. Like, for example, if I told you to give me the GPS coordinates of your house, you probably couldn't do it off the top of your head, but you could trivially navigate a map and drop a pin on, and that's the same as you saying the lat long of that location in text to the LLM, but I just had to give you a different
Right.
tool to
I
let
could give
you do it.
my address in natural language, and
Yeah,
it would come back out even now
yeah,
with lat long,
yeah, that's right.
and then it could feed into something that renders a map and
Yeah.
saying put a pin down based on lat long.
Yeah, that's right.
Boom.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so basically, I'm about to dump all that. And even when I think about the curtain catalog, if we just allow it to be dynamically generated markdown, where, for example, the images are fired up as markdown links, and we just render those fucking links in the markdown, and who fucking cares, right? That's
Yeah.
good enough for a prototype. If people want to bitch about it, it's, like it the Markdown renderer serves almost all the purposes that I wanted to do with the library of components for our web-based version, but it's much more malleable for the LLM. It works every time. There's no debugging. There's no labor from me. It's just fucking
Well,
for 99% of
it's
the cases, it's
interesting,
fine.
isn't it? There's not going to be as many bells and whistles. We're not going to have a designer going in there and deciding what RGB the button should be.
There's none of that.
But
Yeah,
it's going to be so much cheaper and faster and better.
an
I,
instant,
I
right?
don't think
And
anyone will care. It's a bit like whenever you go into command line.
yeah,
Um, it's like command line looks shit, but you can be precise.
yeah, yeah,
Similar
yeah,
to that.
yeah. So there's
Yeah.
basically that, and then if you can do the consensus using pure LLM plus Git, sure there's a bit of networking that I have to do to make sure that we're able
Can
to
can
disseminate.
you take me through that? How do you do consensus through Kit? How? Well, how basically? So
Okay.
Git has
Well,
got commits.
let's imagine that just you and I are running adversarial nodes. I don't trust you, you don't trust me, but we have
Yeah.
to agree on moving something forwards, like, just to pick a random example, a trade we made on some natural gas.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I first of all, we want to generate together a shared Git folder.
Mm-hmm.
I would make a new, let's just assume we got to some point where we have the shared Git folder and
Mm-hmm.
we're in agreement. I
Mm-hmm.
then say to you, I want to alter this trade, and I make a pull request against you.
Mm-hmm.
You receive it. You run the LLM checks that make sure your internal logic
Mm-hmm.
is okay. You then say okay, and then
Mm-hmm.
I say okay about your okay, and now we're in consensus. Now,
Let me think about that.
if you want to get more advanced and get into three parties and being able to be Byzantine fault tolerant amongst them all, um, I think you can't actually have a Byzantine fault until you have four. But I am a little rusty on the old Byzantine bullshit. But if you if you imagine the rules of Tendermint, it is
Mm-hmm.
possible for me to write those rules in English, have an LLM execute them reasonably well. Okay, sure, I'll have to do some testing to make sure I've prompted it right, the messages are coming in are right, and it's tested the edge cases and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, if the message passing is controlled by the LLM, where ultimately it goes, okay, send Smacks this message, bang.
Mm-hmm.
You receive it and you're like, yep, meets protocol, meets this, meets that. Where were we in the Tendermint poker dance? We're here. Okay, cool. Yep, send this message on to blah blah blah.
Ah, I
That's
see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Git
right.
is just a trusted proxy. Now you could use blockchain instead of Git,
Gets.
but
I just want to be clear. When I say Git, I'm not meaning GitHub. Is that the understanding we have together?
no, I'm thinking Git, the open source
Yeah.
piece of software.
Okay. Okay. So Git is a blockchain in data structure, but it doesn't have any consensus mechanism about it. And
But
so,
you're saying that if you have an extra layer of LLMs on both sides, then
yeah,
naturally and a
yeah.
consensus emerges. Now,
Well, they
um,
can do consensus where in the past I would have had to code that, test it, get it formally verified, all this bullshit, and then but now I can actually text it, write it in plain text, and have the
um,
LLM execute it.
why is there not Byzantine tolerant?
Why is it not?
It's yeah. Why is it
I
not?
never.
It's
It would be.
yeah. Oh, I thought you said that it wouldn't be above 4.
No, I just the example I gave you was just for two people, but
All
that's
right,
not a
right.
Byzantine tolerant type of consensus. I don't think you need Byzantine fault tolerance until you've got at least four parties. Right,
Right.
because but when
Okay.
there's only two people, you can't really have a Byzantine generals problem
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like I'm like I saw you, you can't tell me two
Yeah.
things.
By
Yeah,
definition. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So Byzantine and if there's three, it's like well, it doesn't work. Like you can't like three you can kind of do it, but it's like a stupid case where I'm
Right.
like
Right. But it's we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks in a really shit way, but
yeah
it's really if you turn up and you agree the rules.
yeah
And the rules are you've got your own LLM, you make your own decisions,
yep
and then you commit,
that's right.
and that's consensus.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Okay, now the grand finale.
Uh-huh.
If we take this to its conclusion, we end up with a public GPU chain that's built using the Git protocol, whatever, fuck who even cares.
Yep.
The consensus is reached between nodes that can, the network can be partitioned and whatever. We can have fun designing that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can then make a public blockchain that has provable consensus, provable Byzantine fault tolerant consensus that um, Yeah, fuck. Hang on 1 second. I'm just
Mhm,
rebooting my
mhm.
brain. Um, we can make a blockchain that is AI native so that even every interaction you have with it is actually being executed in an AI. The consensus about it is being executed in an AI. Even when you sign up with your wallet, quote unquote, yeah, that's fucking neat. I can even do quotes, right?
There you
But
go. Yeah.
quote unquote, your wallet, even that is AI native. And you're like, you go to send something and it's like, um, did you mean to send that to this guy? Because that's different to this other thing, right? So first of all, it's AI from the fucking outset. You don't
Yeah,
interact with like a wallet and ones and zeros and your passcode and blah 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 blah
yeah,
blah. It's
yeah,
like chat, right? You're chatting
yeah.
with the blockchain, and then you get your own LLM. That's your own data self sovereign
That you trust,
LLM
but
that you
nobody else
trust.
needs to trust. Yeah.
That yeah, and it acts on your behalf and all that. And then the smart contracts are actually just natural language executed by an AI. And so we can put an end to this whole fucking, I need my smart contracts formally verified because it's not fucking, like, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
like
it's not,
Paris.
yeah, right. It's not formally verified. It's natural language, and the LLMs agreed on what the rules were, which means that the people who begin to interact with it, like when you go to make a transaction using MetaMask and you go to sign it, it literally presents you with the bytecode of the contract and goes, "Did you mean to sign this contract?" And you're like, "Mate, I don't fucking, I don't fucking know, right?" Like I know how to write Solidity, decompile it, all that shit. I honestly, even I don't fucking know. I'm like, MetaMask, what do you want me to do? Like, I trust this thing because I think I didn't get scammed, and I don't really know. That's a pointless question, you fucking imbecile. So, in this case, you'd be like, hey, here's how this smart contract works in natural language, and you could ask it questions like, "Oh, is this a scam? What if my grandma does it?" Like, so the programming language of the whole blockchain, as well as the execution environment, the programming language is this natural language. The transactions are just fucking plain text written down like Smacks owes me £5 for that bet he lost about blah blah blah, and like it's all just plain natural language ledgers as though we were in 1602 and we had a room of clerics that were free
An infinite
and
room of
intelligent,
clerks.
an
Yeah.
infinite clerk. Hmm,
Yeah.
that's a fun name for a blockchain. And so you can actually have all the blockchain desires, which are instantaneous, effortless, formal verification of smart contracts, unstoppable execution of code based on consensus, huge distribution amongst resources so that any system can go offline. Okay, so you can get all that. Then you can get the additional features which Interblock promised, which were operation in NetSplit. So
Yep.
China
Yep.
disconnects from
Yep.
America, years
Yep.
go by. Hey,
Yep.
let's get back together again. We're friends
The
now.
guy
Okay.
with a USB coming from North Korea. Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So you get that offline, that holographic split and then merge type of ability. You get
Yep.
the whole isolated private chains where you're like, okay, let's grab a copy of all human knowledge. I'm off to the bush. And then I'm in there, and then you turn up, and I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, uh, let's sync. And, like you can do all the features, the fabric of Interblock is possible with this design, but it's all in fucking natural language.
I um I think I agree. I know. I know. Um I think we've been overtaken by events.
Yep, it happened.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
turns out we're the first event because I ain't heard of anything like this happening, right? Like this is we are
I've not
talking
either,
about
and I've been
yeah,
over
right?
the news like
I know,
a heady
right?
worm. Yeah.
Listening like a motherfucker. fucking
Yeah.
desperate
no,
ex-girlfriend or some
nobody's
shit to be like,
nobody's doing
who is
this.
fucking
Yeah.
talking about this shit? Who is talking about me? Right, but the the aspect of what we're talking about doing is hoisting all logic execution into the LLM's context. That's the
Yes.
thing that we're talking about doing, and that is what we want to replace programming with.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so I've been through all the code for the CRM, and I'm like, honestly, fuck me, all of it. I look at this code and I'm like, that took me weeks, that took me days, that took me a month. All that shit is kind of just the LLM will be just perfectly fine working on it. And if it isn't, I'll tweak it with some natural language statements
but
and it will
also
get
we've
better.
got GPT-5 is coming out in what, 6 months?
Yeah, right. So, fuck, man. Um, so we're talking about a a pivot or a stage separation where we're about to dump everything we fucking bled for and go back to the software defined org, but this time,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This time we've got multiple LLMs. That's the key to it. Multiple LLMs, because we can't trust any single LLM. But there are on my whiteboard here, I've got a list of 12 LLMs
right,
that are getting billions putting against it.
okay.
So,
I have run out of things to say. That was all I had to say. We can
okay,
switch over to you now.
all right. Well, this whiteboard is not complete. Actually, I was halfway through doing it. So the right hand side
Well, sounds like a
and
blockchain that I know about.
the right hand side and the left hand side don't necessarily make sense. But what I've been trying to think about is, how do you talk to an LLM in a way that makes sense? Now, top left hand side, Atom. I think the flat MD file um, is a simple set of assertions. Um, Now, we need to tell
What
the
is what is
LLM.
the what is the purpose of your talk to me?
This is, how do you get an MD file out of? Sorry, how do you get the same functionality of a database out of a flat MD file and an LLM in a
Oh,
way that you can trust it?
okay. I'm pretty sure I got that one covered for you.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Well, that would be more interesting actually, because
all right.
then I can. Yeah, yeah, go for it.
I'm just gonna start a new board.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, it always gets me to set up shit over and over again. It's like, just fucking remember. Piece of goddamn shit that I have no better alternative to. So I'm stuck. God damn it. Okay. So the real difference, as it always has been, comes down to there's data and there's executable data.
Um, no, all data is executable. There are assertions. Those assertions have nouns, something that's representing the real world, and they have
No, man, that's not
characteristics.
true. Because if I have a customer record that's just got customer data,
Uh-huh.
the the LLM that doesn't contain any instructions that an LLM can execute. But then there's a separate type of data that I can make that is instructions for the LLM to execute.
Yeah, correct. So we're talking
Yeah,
about, like I said, like a sysprompt versus the data itself.
correct.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was talking
All right.
only about the data. The data needs to be structured in some way, and the sysprompt needs to be taught how to structure data so it doesn't hallucinate. So, for example, if I was to
Yeah.
say Karen wants curtains, there's two things there. there's a thing called Karen, which the LM is more than capable of identifying, and then there's the goal of wants curtains, and that's an assertion. Those two things, Karen now wants
Yeah,
curtains.
yeah. Okay, so let's not. I don't want to. I don't want to get into the realm of trying to solve that type of problem in one shot. I am concerned with having the stuck loop kick in so that I can by hand teach it what the correct answer was.
Okay.
I don't. I
Well,
don't care about getting that right. That problem.
no, that's cool. But what I would say is it's a solved problem, and it was solved back in the early '90s.
All right, that's fine. Um, I need to. I need to focus. I don't know a better way to say it. I think that we have just wiped all the scaffolding we had around what we were trying to build, and we've leveled the building site. And I need to get some structure back very fucking quickly because.
Right. Okay. Is the structure in the data or in the exe? Because those are two different objects.
So I'll show you the current in my head how it's going to go right now. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have if you imagine that this is a file system, I'm going to abandon the concept of storing anything inside a folder itself
Mm-hmm.
and roll back to the POSIX notion of a folder, which is that it is merely a container for files, and that's all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so we'd have the root of the thing. Let's call that /C M. Not that
Mm-hmm.
even that matters anymore, because being plain text, who fucking gives a shit?
Yep.
Then I would say, just to keep a little bit of structure, I'll say here's the customer's folder.
Which oh, sorry, I don't want to derail, but I'm assuming that How doesn't know that there is such a thing as a CRM or customers until the commissioner says we need something called a CRM and we need something called customers.
Uh, maybe not. But ultimately, the information has to get into the stuck loop somehow.
Right.
Um, I don't know how to answer that exactly, but I think it will drop out of. It's a feature of what I'm explaining, I think. So
Okay. Good.
yeah, hit me
Yeah.
up at the end if it doesn't, if I've still missed it. But for example, inside of the CRM folder, I plan to make a file
Mm-hmm.
called readme.md. You may have
Okay.
seen these around. Okay, now
Yeah.
readme is executable from the point of view of the LLM.
Is README in this situation synonymous with sysprompt, or is it something else?
It's part of a sysprompt. It describes what everything within this folder is about. It
Yep.
describes the structure of how everything's laid out. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that an LLM could read and understand, and also a human could read and understand, because we should treat those two things the same. It
Yes.
right.
Agree.
It may have
Yeah.
been in advanced versions of our system generated or checked off to have a certain format based on by an AI to actually help get high quality readmes,
Yep.
but um, I think going back to basics, it's just saying that this is what the
Okay, so the README is a high priority prompt, sysprompt, that is because of the hierarchy that I think you're about to explain, um, deals with those functions that are pertinent at that level, like add customer.
yeah, that's right, that's right. And so
Okay.
when you say I want to add a customer named Karen, it should through a roundabout way end up at some section of the README and go, oh yeah, that's
Yep.
what I want. Okay,
Yep.
let's begin executing.
Yeah. Agree. Agree.
Oh, by the way, I figured out how to do the how to the goalie to runner um, back and forth thing, and
Excellent.
yeah, I got that going in a way that I'm satisfied with. By when I call the runner interacts with the user to some degree, and then as the output of the function call that the goalie made to call the runner,
Mm-hmm.
it as a return result returns all the messages that it sent back and forth to Dave. And so the
Oh,
goalie only sees this tool output that's like a transcript of the discussion that the runner had. And so all that
yeah.
information is in there as the goalie proceeds. So if,
All right.
yeah,
Ah,
so
that's the intent to goal thing I've
the
been
yeah,
failing to
and
explain. Yeah.
there's also like the runner, whenever the runner talks to Dave, sure, it may get what it needed, but that might also include some information that Dave might want to talk about later, or maybe relevant to the next goal on the list and all
Right.
that stuff, right? And it was always it was a bit of a pain in the ass to figure out how to get it back. That's how it works sufficiently. That
Yeah.
model,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Um,
Are
right.
they separate sessions?
I make them be that way, but
Right.
they do technically contain all the information that the other one does, but
Mm-hmm.
they're viewed as sort of like the goalie views its sessions directly with Dave as being more direct than the
So
transcript it got of the runner's session with Dave.
right. So the goalie is passed all the information, but is given different instructions through the sysprompt,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so interprets it in a different way.
that's right, that's right, that's right,
Right.
that's right.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah,
that's brilliant, man. Well done.
yeah, it worked out pretty good. I was like, man,
Yeah,
that's
that's
sweet,
pretty cool. Very
simple and
cool.
sweet. All right, so under customers, there will be files like I'm just going to use numerical numbers for lack of a better fucking more imaginative numbering scheme. We're like 0001 dot
Yep.
md.
Yep.
Probably guess the next one. It's
Yep. Okay.
0005 because maybe someone fucking deleted a few customers, whatever. So Git gives you excellent ability to say things like, who changed this file? You're like, okay,
Yeah.
Git blame. The internet
Yeah.
is littered with ways to use Git to understand that type of thing, so I presume the LLM will be very proficient in that for a long time. And
And it's well
so,
structured as well.
yeah, yeah. And so you can say, okay, what happened to customer O2? Well, we can use Git to look up the history of that folder. What happened to, who changed this line? That's a
Yep.
commit from
And you
staff
got
member
attribution right there.
XYZ.
Yeah,
Yeah, right,
attribution.
right. So Git has all that in it,
Yep.
and I'm sort of like, what the fuck? Like, if the LLM does all the execution, and Artifact, the whole reason it became so fucking elaborate was for the purpose of doing execution of
Yep.
arbitrary code. But if that arbitrary code now is being executed in the mind of an LLM,
Yeah.
I think maybe you don't need the artifact anymore. So anyway, Anyway, moving right
Yeah.
along.
Yeah. Well, the
Just
artifact has been replaced by Git for now.
for now,
Um.
yeah. There are some
Yeah.
elements of it that I can see that we'll still need, like the networking components that allow you to gossip.
Just yeah, and distribute GPU power, for example.
Yeah, all those types of things. But
Yeah.
again, so that is actually a complicated fucking problem, if I can, have my French pardoned for today of
Well,
all days. But
you need an AI for that.
well, that's the thing, right? Like you can do a network that's fucking weird as shit, and it doesn't. The thing is that once the links are established, I can
Hmm.
pipe. It almost doesn't matter how long it took to discover the link and set it up. And so, if I can, what I'd wanted to do for a long time was I wanted to actually model the state of the network inside of Artifact and
Mm-hmm.
then gossip that around so that people could make their own judgment on, do I need a link? Is there
Mm-hmm.
better to have a link here, for example, right? But if I can actually describe this network in markdown files and then have rules that say when to open up this connection and who to allow in and why, and have my my ACL records, like access records, are actually now being logged in Git in fucking Markdown. It doesn't matter if, let's say, the LLM takes like, you know 3.5 turbo is fucking quick, man. So like it could probably have had a back and forth, and in about a second and a half it could have decided that I need to make this link. And
Mm-hmm.
so it simply executes the command to open it up. And then the Git protocol is used to stream data back and forth with
Mm.
sort of, different checks being done and all that. So you can actually achieve, I think, a lot of the architectural aspirations I had for a fully distributed network by using the LLM to do fucking complicated shit, man. Like,
And also dynamic stuff that constantly changes. So remember
that's
when we were
right.
doing smart cities,
Yeah, that's
and
exactly right. That's exactly
buses
right.
moving around and so on. Yeah.
Right, right. The fact that the LLM takes a couple of seconds doesn't actually fucking matter. There are no use cases that I can think of that you need to work out how to reorient your mesh network in under 10 seconds. It just doesn't work like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's like it's just not, it doesn't matter. And so if the LLM is able to do this thing, plus you can sort of, because it's all in Markdown, I can snapshot the whole thing, put it in a lab, and
And
then
yeah.
theorize about what
Yeah.
the fuck
Yeah.
could happen in natural language, test all the rules that the LLM's executing on, and then release a new version of the protocol, like kind of overnight, man. Like it's
Or not even
fucking
overnight. Not even overnight. You could do it, almost in real time.
right. But
In
then
2 years from
because
now.
because
Yeah.
because it's all happening in natural language, I can set some goals for the system, and when it drifts out of bounds with those goals, the LLM itself can take a look at the protocol and say, what's going on? Why is this protocol not right? Because LLMs are capable of debugging natural language workflows, I think, better than they are at debugging code. Because
Yes.
code was written for humans to
Yeah.
tell machines. But if you can execute natural language, who fucking cares? Like, who
Yeah.
fucking cares?
Yeah.
And so this feature, this networking feature, I have delayed for years because look at it, right? It's an absolute motherfucker. All the blockchains, every
Mm-hmm.
blockchain, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, fucking whatever you want to jack off about, has this fucking problem. What is my network? Is it reliable? How fast is it? What if it segments? Who's in charge? What consensus is there? How do I authenticate? Like these are problems you can actually describe within an LLM, and then if all you've done is describe the protocol, you can now use it. Whereas these
Yeah.
protocols take fucking years. Like
Yeah.
some of them are like a decade old. Like the goddamn staking algorithm for Ethereum, I spoke to the guy that was working on that in 2016. And I was like, dude, where's this at? He's like, oh, we'll be done soon. Bullshit. 2022 it was released. Okay, like these things take a long fucking time, and yet we can have it now.
Yes.
What's more, being the innovation center of the world means that we can actually invite alternatives, modifications, and you can run it immediately. Like, who even fucking cares?
We can drop in, but also what we've got, and there's a thing that I'm going to remind you of at the end of this call. We're saying that the court isn't important. I think the court is
I
important,
never said it
but
wasn't important. Who said that?
oh, I thought you said that at the start of the call.
Why the fuck
Um,
would I say that?
the court, I think, is actually the way that we reconcile between differences between models. and we get high
Yeah, yeah.
credibility.
So that would become more like uh, a consensus mechanism between LLMs, which I think we can standardize, or at least have an algorithm that we've
Right, but you
described
can you
for.
can drop it in, but also the
Yeah,
LLM can do the next version,
hopefully, right?
GDP
Yeah,
5, all
hopefully,
that sort of thing.
hopefully, hopefully. And so, um,
Oh, hold a second, man.
what the fuck?
Turn around to find your whiteboard. I don't want to. No.
You must have
What?
bumped the button. You must have bumped a move to the whiteboard. Oh no!
Rubbish.
Oh
Fucking
no!
this fucking technology.
Oh no!
Come on.
Come on,
I
Nay.
can't do anything now.
Come on, Nay. Well, you better go find your whiteboard then.
Confirm position. I don't want to. Right. Okay. Back in the room.
Hey,
Right. Hey,
back
back.
in the
I'm back.
game.
Okay.
Okay, so give me a second. There was something I'm trying to retrieve from my failing brain about that exact same thing. Um, the court, the attribution.
Yeah. I think the court is really. I think it's going to become more important because we want to be agnostic on models. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you could just choose one. Fine. Yeah. But then we need to get some kind of court together, which has got an LLM deciding what the voting logic is on other LLMs, deciding on what is the result of any changes to the system. I think that's how you get credibility because we've got to get people to like buy into the idea that all they've got to do is talk to the machine, talk to the hand.
yeah. Okay.
Great. Sorry.
Okay. So I think what that means is we focus on the workbench, and then we can actually have these, beautiful decentralized network structures can be reasoned about in natural language, with, you know, because we have attribution, we can set up a court for attribution from the fucking word go. People can understand how it works. They can run these scenarios, and so
Right.
we can bring a lot of the thinking we did around. Okay, if the state of the world as perceived by an LLM is captured in Git, then you can and the LLM behaved incorrectly. You can analyze that till the cows come home, replay it, replay it, replay it until it's working correctly. And so you should be able to patch and tweak these systems extraordinarily rapidly. And so the amount of code we have to produce falls to nearly zero because all the code is happening in the LLMs. Um,
I agree.
So we need to basically drop everything again and head down the path of getting these basic workbenches up, I think, and then we're launching a public chain where that public chain is entirely, it's not just, the public chain is actually executed by LLMs. It's like it's the new execution environment of code,
Mm-hmm.
and the programming is in natural language, and that's our blockchain. And we're like, uh it's not even really, like even it's not even a computer program at that point. It's a genuine AI first system.
So I agree with all this, especially the networking. Um, the data, LLMs can replace X's. We know that.
I was just meaning that by exe I meant that there is some code that the LLM will execute on. Like it'll be a set of rules, like find the next collection date. If the So if I give you
Yeah,
this,
it's
you know,
instructions. X's
instructions,
are
yeah, instructions,
instructions.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
instructions.
And
Correct.
data is
Data
uh,
is
uh,
consumed by those
uh,
instructions by following those
yeah, no,
instructions.
it's more than that. So data are assertions that can go back in time, and then we've also got state.
What the fuck? What state?
Right. For example, the XE says a customer needs to have a name and an address.
Yeah.
Karen says, "My name is Karen. I'm a customer." Or the LM works this out,
Mm,
and my address is this, and it moves address. Now the data is still there because
yeah.
we need to be able to rewind,
Right.
but the state is Karen is now at this new address,
Right.
and it's still a customer.
Oh, okay. So
So
if we just use like I don't think that all you're really talking about is what's called the head in Git, which is like the current tip of the change set,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
The head is the current state.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, um, man, I gotta be painfully honest with you. I just feel like I got my wishes come true, but I lost my lower limbs to get it. Like I'm like,
um,
we can do
uh,
this. We can
to
do this.
be
We can
to
make
be
this blockchain.
to be frank, it seems like we're on the head of a wave here. Um, but we had to learn a whole bunch of shit over the last God knows how many
Yeah,
years
right. So the
to
principles of
get
what
there.
we want are kind of like, valid, but it just seems that, we didn't actually have to get them with software code. We could get them with
I know, but the thing would say,
oh, it makes
maybe
me so
this will help.
mad. It makes me so mad, Maxwell. Like, I'm like, God
Well,
damn it.
maybe this will help. Maybe this won't. But remember, my thing about runway behind us.
Ah, don't
Um,
don't fucking start with me. This
it's
is not
runway
the
behind
fucking
us.
time for
There's nothing more useless. Uh, but what we are on is a good trajectory. Now, how do we structure the data? How do we structure the readmes
Yeah.
in order
Okay, yeah, yeah.
to
So
stop
so
the
I
LLMs hallucinating?
I think I got
Because
that covered.
credibility is,
And so
yeah, yeah. Sorry.
I'll carry on with that explanation. Basically, I would have a bunch of markdown files representing each customer, and then I would also have the rule is going to be like, I could either say a README file here,
Hmm.
and that's where I would define the list of rules about like what,
Right, right.
what,
Good, 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 good. So that
and
makes
so like
sense. That makes sense.
the
So what
data
we've got,
template
yeah,
goes in
yeah, yeah.
there, all this other stuff, right?
Right. Sorry, because I think I'm with you on this one. Um, what we've got in each level of the hierarchy is two things. We've got MDs, which are assertions,
Yeah.
and then we've got readmes, which is effectively sysprompts, which I'm assuming you can, in the background, load up and give priority to, so that when the goalie, which is not in this diagram, but let's imagine it is, says, "Oh, you're talking about CRM. Oh, you're talking about customers," and then it goes to README, and it's like, "Here's what we can do about READMEs." Now we're talking about 0001.md. That's Karen. Karen has an address, and then you
Yeah,
can
so
read
like
and write.
in there is like the
Yeah,
template. It's like the data format is this,
right,
and
right,
so
and
let me
that's probably going to be CRUD or something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
well
right.
then in there you can put like rules like you can do the equivalent of a SQL trigger that says that if you change this, if you change a customer record, then you need to head off over to the you need to go off to the. Oh, fuck me. Sorry, man. I've used the wrong
Oh,
fucking color. Damn shit everywhere. I've used the wrong. So I could say this is the routing table, and
okay,
I could
okay,
say that
okay.
routing is like the order of collections of the addresses, and so
Hmm.
I can say if the address changes, you have to geocode it using this function, and then update the position in the routing table so that the customer can be found. And so this README can have arbitrarily many rules within it
Yep.
that the
Yep.
LLM is just executing. How we go about processing that can be defined even higher, like sort of
Well, it
up
should be
here.
because if we get too many readmes, they're going to start hallucinating.
Well, no, it's more like how do I process a README, right? Now, let's say the README
Yeah.
included a numbered set of rules of what to do whenever a customer gets updated.
Uh,
Sort of like how we had been talking about having this concept of rules and preferences and all that.
yeah.
That I think actually goes in here. And so, what I mean when I say this is how we're going to interpret these things is that you you can do tricks or mechanisms like if there's a numbered list, execute them one at a time and
Mm-hmm.
sort of so I can make like parallel calls out to GPT Turbo and just like how you process the README file is what I'm saying. That is defined in an even higher level README file that sort of says, okay, when I receive a list of
Yeah.
rules
Yeah.
under
Yes.
the
Yes.
rules
Yes. Yes.
heading,
Yes.
I'm going to make 15 independent calls. I'm never going to go above
Yeah.
25. I'm, like it's doing all these kinds of things, right?
Yeah. 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 That's exactly the point I was making.
Right, right,
There,
right,
there
right,
needs to be a
right.
meta
Yeah,
bot
yeah.
that
And
sets
even honestly,
all this.
even shit like don't break the word limit. Sorry, don't break the request per minute limit of GPT can be
Yeah.
handled in a markdown file that gets updated and managed by
Right.
GPT
Right.
because it
Yeah.
honestly doesn't the round trip time for GPT Turbo is like half a second to make a page. You can feed it like here's how many calls you've made.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
within the rate limit?
Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
increase
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
it doesn't have
Exactly.
to be that fucking fast to be incredibly effective, but most importantly, I don't have to code it. So it's like a half a fucking second latency to get this thing that can be adaptive,
25
fluid,
cents versus $160,000.
meh, or more. Honestly, I knew I should have spent it on fucking.
Oh
I
man,
could have
oh
just
man,
sat on my
man.
fucking ass and done
No,
nothing.
you couldn't, you couldn't. But
And
I
done
think we're in
nothing.
sync. I think we're in sync. I think we're in sync.
Ah. Yeah, and so and even that. So here's the most sort of inception based part of all this is that
Mm,
even though I struggled for about a week and a half to get the goalie runner paradigm working,
mm.
you could probably sit here and come up with half a dozen other ways that you think that should work or could work or you want to play with, and
Yep.
you'd tell me, and I'd be like, "Oh, dude, I don't have like,
Well, that's what's
you know,
been happening. I mean, over the last what is it, 6 weeks, 8 weeks since you were
yeah,
up here,
yeah,
I've been playing around with bots,
I
and
know,
you'd be going, "Oh man, right, okay, right, yeah, I'll get you this."
yeah," and then
Coding
you're like,
is
and then
slow, and
I know, right?
LLMs are
So if we
fast.
can
It's
make this model, then you would be able to describe a Hell Runner style
right,
interface of
right.
arbitrary complexity that you could execute in natural language. And if it works out, you might come to me and be like, Tom, this thing works great, but the performance is a little shit. Then I can code it. Then I'm like, okay,
Uh,
I'm gonna
yeah,
help you out.
yeah.
I know how to make this
You
faster. We're
just
gonna do,
offload. You offload. Stuff that doesn't need to be done.
yeah, like
And
we can
yeah,
actually do
yeah,
some of the computation in
yeah.
actual computer logic because we want the speed. But that'd be the same as like making a shader for a game, and you're like, all right, guys, it's time for
Yeah.
assembly.
The
This bit
interesting
needs to
thing
run fast.
when I've been doing these bots, the interesting thing is actually all you really need to do, um, and this is really really fucking important. You need to be very clear about your own logic because you're being unfair to Hal unless you're being expressive and say exactly what you need to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right. That's right.
then
That's right.
it falls down. But all you need to do is be clear in your own logic.
That's
You
right.
don't need
That's right.
to actually. You don't really need to be self-consistent particularly because it kind of
Well,
works out.
yeah, it'll figure it out. But yeah, the
Yeah,
the point is, if you can have beautiful natural language descriptions that are internally consistent, use consistent words, have
yeah.
been tested for logic,
It has
uh,
definitions. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
have
you do all that,
examples. Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna do great. If you then, like, the old way of doing it, you had to somehow turn that into a program, and then you've got to, like, maybe you didn't capture everything, and then you spit it back, and you got all these edge cases and blah blah blah,
and then
and
you
it's
had to
like,
fly out to Vancouver and
I
explain to
know,
guys.
I know, again, right?
And,
And then in the meantime, something else changes, and we need to pivot, and now you're like two
yeah,
weeks behind, and
and
it's
they're
no
saying,
longer
"Oh, you just
correct.
2 weeks ago you said this, and now you're
And you're
saying
like,
that."
yeah, and now it's 2 weeks later, and it's changed. And so, if we can just hit this system, you can then go off and solve your esoteric problems like, this is an assertion, Karen did this is a goal, and I
Yep,
think it would
yep.
work if I did this and that, because it's just like you would be able to make it as fast as you can talk about it.
Well. Also, the thing is, if I'm wrong, it's dead easy to change.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I
Whereas
don't need
here,
to.
I'm like, the thing I've got for Hal and the Runner, I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, that's
Yeah,
sort of like,
it's like I
it's
don't
good
need to
how
go
it is.
to a team of 8 guys who are all going to be slightly grumpy because last week you said this and this week you're saying that.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. And so I
Now
I
there's
literally can't think of anything that we want to achieve that isn't possible using Git plus LLM, where the LLM does all the logic execution. I really can't think
I
of it.
would only add to that the something I've been banging on about, which is LLM to LLM in order to not get pollution between sessions. That's a quite a big one.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly expressible in this model, because so part of the uh, components that I'm thinking of making, and I apologize for I sort of really only have all this stuff in my head. It's not documented anywhere yet, but
Everyone has it only in their head at the moment. Nobody's
it's
documenting
a way.
anything.
No, right, it's too fast. So the way to get an LLM to do your logic execution is not to give it chat history. It's really to just give it a very narrow function. So, for example,
Mhm.
if I just want to add the name Karen, I would get, say, um, a GPT-4 instance to make a call to a GPT 3.5 instance to update just this record. And so I would be very commonly calling the LLM with just the sysprompt and the data and the response, and so there's no way that that's polluted with fucking anything, because
Yes, I
yeah,
agree. I
yeah.
agree.
And so what I think I can do for you is to make a set of components where you can actually configure these types of system calls where you're programming the LLM, and it really just runs, like it ties it all together for you, and that's all I need to supply you with. Everything else, you should be able to, with the tools I give you, design the whole CRM just sitting in HAL, and that's it.
Yes.
Because
Well,
right,
there's again, there's two things. There's a hard. Well, no, three things. Sorry. There's a hierarchy. That's the first thing. The second
yeah,
thing is there's the MDs 0001, for example, and then importantly at each point there's the README. If I can get, it doesn't really. It doesn't even need to be different bots, but what I need to do is to get the if you've context switched to README at customers, you're talking about customers now.
oh, hang on a second, hang on.
Yeah.